At exactly 7:18 every morning, the yellow school bus rolled down the gravel road leading to the edge of Pine Grove, a sleepy mountain town wrapped in mist and pine trees, where the wild often whispered at the edge of everyday life. Just before the bus turned toward the main road, it made a short stop outside the Everett family farm, an old wooden house with a sloped green roof, a crooked mailbox, and rows of apple trees that danced in the wind. That's where Emily stood. 10 years old, with a crooked ponytail and a backpack twice her size, she waited at the edge of the frostbitten driveway. Her boots, worn from muddy puddles and forest paths, scraped against the gravel as she rocked on her heels. But Emily wasn't alone. Every morning, without fail, a small bear cub waited beside her. Not a pet. Not tamed. Not even named, not at first. He'd show up just before the bus arrived, walking out from the trees with the slow, careful steps of something unsure but unafraid. His fur was a soft, smoky brown. His eyes were round and curious, his nose twitching like a dog's. He never growled. Never begged. Never crossed the invisible line between wild and familiar. He just stood there. Quietly. He'd sit a few feet from Emily. Sometimes just watching her. Sometimes pacing. But never leaving, not until the bus came. When the old yellow bus pulled up with a low grumble and a cloud of morning exhaust, the bear cub would watch intently. He would tilt his head as Emily climbed aboard. He'd wait until the bus pulled away, his reflection shrinking in the side mirror. Then, without a sound, he would disappear back into the trees. The children on the bus had a name for him, Buddy. It started as a joke, just a word tossed between seats by giggling kids who couldn't believe their friend had a bear as a morning companion. But over time, it stuck. Even Mr. Banning, the grizzled driver who never smiled unless it snowed on Christmas, began to lean out his window and tip his cap to the bear each morning. "Morning, Buddy," he'd mumble, then chuckle to himself. "Don't be late for class." No one really knew where Buddy came from. Some said he wandered down from Glacier Pass. Others claimed Emily must have raised him in secret, that she found him when he was just a cub and earned his trust. The Everett family never spoke much about it. But one thing everyone agreed on, it was strange. And magical. Like a scene out of a forgotten fairy tale. Word spread. First through Pine Grove Elementary. Then through the town. People started waiting at their fences just to catch a glimpse. A few even tried to photograph him, but Buddy never came near when strangers were close. He was cautious. Almost shy. But with Emily, he was different. She never fed him. Never touched him. She didn't need to. Their bond was unspoken. Built on quiet mornings, sideways glances, and the simple comfort of routine. Until one morning, just as the first golden leaves of autumn began to fall, Buddy didn't come. Emily stood alone at the curb, boots planted, eyes scanning the treeline. Nothing. No rustling branches. No paw prints in the soft dirt. No Buddy. The bus came. Mr. Banning gave her a questioning look through the rearview mirror. Emily didn't speak. She just climbed aboard and sat by the window, eyes locked on the empty woods until they disappeared behind her. That morning, Pine Grove felt different. The children whispered. The driver didn't joke. Even the trees, it seemed, stood still. The bear cub who had waited with quiet loyalty every morning was gone. And no one knew why. It had all started nearly a year ago, on a rainy spring afternoon. Emily had wandered farther into the woods than she was usually allowed. Her parents often warned her not to stray beyond the fallen oak, a moss-covered tree that had split in two during a lightning storm when she was 6. But curiosity had always been her compass, and that day, it pulled her deeper into the forest. The sky was still sobbing with rain when she spotted him. At first, Emily thought it was a dog. A strange, furry shape hunched beneath a low pine tree, its body slick with mud, its small frame shivering. But when she crept closer, slow, careful, heart-pounding, she realized it wasn't a dog at all. It was a bear cub. Tiny. Alone. And bleeding. A nasty gash ran across his left shoulder, likely from a barbed fence or a predator's claws. His breathing was ragged. He didn't move when Emily approached, only opened his wet eyes and blinked, as if too weak to be afraid. She didn't scream. She didn't run. Something deep inside her, older than her years, fiercer than fear, took over. She slid off her raincoat and inch by inch, held it out like a shield. "It's okay," she whispered. "I won't hurt you." The cub didn't growl. He didn't flinch. He just stared at her, silent, unmoving, as if trying to decide if she was real. Emily sat nearby for what felt like an hour, sheltering him with the coat, humming softly, even though her lips were blue with cold. When the rain eased, she went back home, sprinting through brambles and mud, breathless and soaked, shouting for her parents. Her father, a quiet man with calloused hands and gentle eyes, followed her without hesitation. When he saw the cub, his face tightened with concern. They couldn't bring the cub into the house, that much was clear. But they couldn't leave him to die either. They made a makeshift shelter near the edge of the woods, using hay, a tarp, and old kennel fencing from when they had rescued a stray German shepherd years ago. Emily named him that very first night, even though no one thought he'd survive till morning. "Buddy," she said softly, peering through the fence with a flashlight. "Because I think, maybe you need one." She didn't sleep that night. Neither did her parents. The next day, they called the local ranger's office. A woman named Clara Travers came out, kind, no nonsense, her jacket stitched with forest patches and a face that had seen too many orphaned animals. She examined the cub from a distance, frowning. "He's underweight, wounded, and separated from his mother too early. Odds aren't good." Emily clenched her fists. "He's still breathing. That means there's still a chance." Clara had looked at her, really looked, and something shifted. "Well," she sighed, "let's give him one." With Clara's guidance, they kept their distance. No touching. No baby talk. Buddy was wild, and he had to stay that way if he was ever going to survive on his own. Emily wasn't allowed to feed him directly, but she helped prepare the formula. She watched him from the porch, drew sketches of him in her notebook, whispered stories to the wind, hoping he'd hear them. And slowly, Buddy healed. His wound closed. His eyes brightened. He grew stronger and braver. By midsummer, he no longer needed the shelter. He'd vanish into the forest during the day, only returning around dusk to sniff at the fence or nudge at the leftover food bowl. But something about the bond stuck. Even when he stopped needing them, stopped coming every day, he still returned for one thing: Emily. He'd sit just beyond the tree lean, watching her read on the porch. Some days, he'd follow her halfway down the path when she walked to the school bus stop. It was like he remembered. Like he chose her. That's when the routine started. And the town began to notice. But none of them knew how deep that bond went. Not yet. By late summer, the bear cub had become part of Pine Grove's rhythm, as dependable as the morning mist and the distant owl hoots at dusk. Each day, Buddy appeared at the edge of the Everett driveway just before the yellow bus arrived. He'd sit there, a quiet sentinel, his round ears perked, his eyes following only one person, Emily. The town began to take notice. At first, it was just whispers among kids at Pine Grove Elementary. "You seen that bear yet?" "He walks her to the bus stop like a dog." "I heard he waves goodbye." Soon it spread further, to shopkeepers, postmen, and PTA moms. People started standing by their windows in the mornings, mugs of coffee in hand, hoping to catch a glimpse of the now famous bus stop bear. Mr. Jennings, who ran the local newspaper, printed a grainy photo with the headline, "Bear Ly Believable, Young Cub Follows Girl to School Daily." That article changed everything. People began calling Emily the Bear Girl. Some children envied her, others were slightly afraid of her. A few parents worried, wondering if it was safe to let their kids stand near a wild animal, even one that seemed tame. But Emily didn't care about the talk. For her, Buddy wasn't a story. He wasn't a sideshow or a town mystery. He was comfort. She never spoke much about it, even to her parents. But after her grandmother passed the previous year, Emily had begun waking up with a weight on her chest. Something sad, something quiet, something that lingered even on sunny days. But when Buddy waited for her in the morning, that weight lifted. He never spoke, of course. Never wagged his tail or barked like a dog might. But he looked at her as if he knew. As if her presence calmed him, too. Some mornings he'd sit while she talked, about spelling tests, books she was reading, how her class hamster kept escaping. Sometimes she didn't talk at all. They'd just stand together, side by side, watching the light spill through the pine trees. She began leaving him apples. Not too close, just near the woods. Her dad warned her, don't make him reliant. But he also quietly started buying extra fruit at the market. One Saturday morning, Emily slipped out early, hoping to catch Buddy before the day began. She found him at the base of the hill behind the house, watching a pair of ravens dance between branches. She sat a few feet away, sketchpad in her lap. That morning, for the first time, Buddy approached her on his own. He didn't touch her, didn't growl or sniff. He simply came close, just a foot away, and sat down. Quiet. Peaceful. Emily held her breath. After a while, she whispered, "I think you know me better than anyone else, huh?" Buddy blinked slowly, like an answer. It became their ritual, not just the bus stop, but their in-between moments. Afternoons where she sat by the creek near the woods and read aloud. Evenings where she'd glance out the window and see his silhouette framed by twilight. Then came the town meeting. Some adults had grown concerned. A few suggested that the bear needed to be relocated, for everyone's safety. "He's still wild," one man argued. "What happens when he gets bigger? What if he gets aggressive?" Clara Travers, the wildlife ranger who had helped early on, was there too. She raised her hand. "Bears remember," she said. "And they choose their habits. This cub has shown no signs of aggression. He could have stayed deep in the forest. But he comes here. To her. That's not coincidence. That's a bond." In the end, the town decided not to interfere, for now. Buddy had become more than a bear. He was a symbol of something most people had forgotten in their busy lives: connection without expectation. Loyalty without language. And for Emily, he had become more than just a morning visitor. He was her peace. Her secret strength. Her buddy. Until the morning, he was gone. The morning Buddy didn't show up, the air felt different. Emily noticed it even before she opened her eyes. The quiet had changed. It wasn't just the normal stillness of early morning. It was heavier. Hollow. She sat up in bed, pulling back the curtains to check the edge of the yard. Nothing. No shadow near the trees. No waiting figure near the broken fence post where he always sat. Still, she got dressed quickly, yanking on her backpack and coat, bounding down the stairs. "Mom, is Buddy here?" she asked, half breathless. Her mother looked up from her coffee with a sympathetic smile. "Not yet, honey. Maybe he's running late." But Emily already knew. He'd never been late. She stood by the road, eyes scanning the woods, her heart thudding with a slow, stubborn panic. The school bus rumbled around the bend, too loud, too soon. Still no sign of him. Her legs felt like stone as she climbed the bus steps. She took her usual seat by the window, the one Buddy always watched her from. But today, all she saw were pine shadows and empty space. Her classmates didn't say much, not after they saw her face. By second period, the ache had bloomed into something deeper, like a splinter stuck behind her ribs. The minutes dragged. At lunch, she didn't eat. At recess, she didn't speak. And when she got off the bus that afternoon, her feet hit the ground fast, running toward the forest, calling his name. "Buddy. Buddy, where are you?" She wasn't supposed to go deep into the woods alone, but the worry drowned every rule. She checked the stream near the creek, the hill where he liked to nap under the oak, even the old shelter, long since abandoned. Nothing. No paw prints. No snapped branches. Not even the smell she had come to associate with him, earthy, wild, safe. Just wind. Just trees. Just silence. That night, she sat on the porch with her knees pulled tight to her chest, refusing to come in. "He's gone," she whispered. Something happened. Her dad brought her a blanket. "Animals move on, sweetheart. Especially wild ones. Maybe it was time." Emily shook her head. Not without saying goodbye. He wouldn't. She didn't sleep that night. The next day, and the day after, Buddy still didn't come. Her drawings of him stayed tucked away in her notebook, too painful to look at. By the end of the week, even the neighbors began asking, "Haven't seen that bear lately. Everything okay?" Maybe he wandered off to hibernate. They grow up. They move on. It's nature. But Emily wasn't convinced. Something had shifted, not just in her routines, but deep inside. Like a puzzle piece had been pulled from her chest. Even Clara, the ranger, noticed. She came by the house one evening after patrol. We haven't had any sightings in over a week, she admitted gently. No tracks. No signs of distress either. Could mean he just moved deeper into the range. Or something's wrong, Emily said flatly. Clara hesitated, then knelt beside her. Bears are smart. But they're still wild, Emily. They live by instinct, not promises. Emily blinked back tears. He promised. He never said it, but he did. The ranger looked at her, really looked, and nodded slowly. Then maybe, he's trying to keep it. In his own way. By the second week, the town had moved on. But Emily hadn't. She checked the edge of the yard every morning. She left apples. She sketched him in the margins of her notebooks. Even the school bus driver began to notice. He was more than just a bear to you, wasn't he? He asked gently one afternoon. Emily nodded, her voice a whisper. He was my goodbye hug. My good luck charm. He was mine. The absence became its own character in her life, a shadow that sat quietly beside her, unspoken but ever present. And yet, somewhere in her heart, a flicker remained. He hadn't said goodbye. And until he did, this wasn't over. 2 weeks passed. No sign. No sound. No paw prints. Emily's world had dimmed. Her drawings of Buddy, once full of color and motion, now sat abandoned in the back of her notebook. At night, she would press her forehead against the cold glass of her bedroom window and whisper into the darkness. Please come back. Just let me know you're okay. Then one morning, something changed. A soft knock at the front door. Clara, the wildlife ranger, stood there, boots muddy and expression unreadable. I found something, she said. Emily jumped to her feet. Clara led her and her father along a winding dirt trail, deep into the woods. The trees grew denser, darker. Birds hushed. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. They stopped at a small, sun-dappled clearing. There, Clara pointed. Fresh tracks. Black bear. Smaller than average. Emily dropped to her knees, brushing the pine needles away. Buddy, she whispered. It's him. And that's not all, Clara said, motioning toward a downed tree trunk nearby. Scratched into the bark, low to the ground, like it had been made with soft claws, was a pattern. A half circle. Then a line. Then another half circle. It almost looks like, Clara began. A school bus, Emily finished. Her voice cracked with wonder. It wasn't just a sign. It was a message. Buddy had been here. He had tried to draw what mattered. The one thing that connected them. The yellow bus. The goodbye he never got to say. Emily stood up straighter. He's not gone. He's trying to tell me something. Clara hesitated, then pulled something from her jacket, a small radio tracker collar. There's one more thing, she said softly. A few weeks ago, I got word that a wildlife rescue truck passed through the area. A cub was spotted near the road. Injured. Possibly disoriented. Emily's heart skipped. You think they took him? We weren't sure, until I followed the tire tracks from that area to a private sanctuary 3 towns over. They don't usually communicate with local rangers, but I made a few calls. Clara's voice grew quieter. There's a young black bear there. Limping. About the same age as Buddy. But, he's refusing food. Keeps pacing the fence. Won't interact with the staff. They say he sits near the gate every morning. As if waiting. Emily's breath caught. He's waiting for me, she said. Her dad looked skeptical. Sweetheart, even if it is him, you can't just go bring a wild bear back. I'm not bringing him back, Emily said quietly. I just want to see him. To tell him he's not alone. Clara nodded. I already spoke to the sanctuary. They'll allow a supervised visit. Just one. We leave tomorrow. The next morning, the sky was painted with soft pastels as they drove through winding hills and old-growth forest. The sanctuary sat nestled at the edge of a protected valley, where injured or orphaned wildlife received long-term care. They led Emily past enclosures of foxes, owls, deer. Finally, they reached a large, shaded pen. A single bear sat near the back, facing away. Buddy, she called gently. The bear stiffened. He turned slowly, moved forward a few steps, then paused. It was him. Even through the months of growth and the small limp in his right leg, she knew. He tilted his head, that familiar tilt that always came when she talked to him. That same, curious posture. Tears filled her eyes. "I missed you," she said, voice trembling. "I thought you left, but you didn't, did you? You just got lost." The bear stepped closer, slowly, cautiously. Not too close. Just enough. Then, in a soft gesture that shattered her completely, Buddy lowered his head to the ground, not in fear or submission, but like he was bowing. Remembering. Can I draw near?" she asked the ranger quietly. Clara gave a hesitant nod. Emily stepped forward to the fence, pulled out a small apple from her coat pocket, and gently rolled it under the gate. Buddy sniffed. Then, with a familiar delicacy, he picked it up. Their eyes met. It was goodbye, or maybe something else. An understanding. "Will he be okay?" Emily asked. Clara smiled faintly. "I think now, he has a reason to try." As they drove home that evening, Emily watched the forest roll past her window. Buddy was alive. Safe. Remembering. And though they were separated by fences and laws, their bond had never been broken. It had simply gone quiet, like snow beneath pine needles. Waiting. Winter melted into spring. Then spring warmed into summer. Buddy never returned to the forest near Emily's home, not in the way he once had. But every now and then, there were signs. Tracks near the tree-line. A paw print pressed into damp earth by the old apple trees. Claw marks higher up the trunks than any cub could reach. Quiet reminders that he'd been there, watching. Remembering. Emily didn't wait by the bus stop anymore. School was out for the summer, and her family had decided to move closer to town. Things were changing, as they always do, but she never forgot. Not for a day. Sometimes she would dream of that little bear cub, walking beside the school bus, head bobbing, eyes wide and curious. She'd wake up and glance out the window, half expecting to see him sitting in the morning light. But the spot was always empty. Until one morning, exactly 1 year to the day since Buddy had first stopped coming, something changed again. Emily woke to the sound of distant barking. She rushed to the kitchen window, her breath catching. Buddy wasn't there. But someone was. Clara. She was walking up the old dirt path with a camera around her neck and a folded newspaper in her hand. "You're going to want to see this," she said, holding it out. The front page was a grainy wildlife camera photo. A large black bear, scarred slightly across one shoulder, stood facing a metal fence at the edge of a rescue sanctuary. On the other side of the fence, a yellow school bus, parked temporarily during a field trip. The headline read, "Bear returns to the bus, a reunion year in the making." Emily's hands trembled as she read. The sanctuary had hosted a visit for local school children, and just as the buses arrived, a bear had wandered from the woods. Rangers confirmed it was the same one from months before, the one they had nicknamed Fence Bear, for his habit of sitting silently by the gate each morning. "He waited for the bus," Emily whispered. "He remembered," Clara nodded. "And now, the sanctuary is changing his designation. They're moving him to a semi-open preserve, one where he'll have more freedom, more land, but still some protection. He's earned it." "Can I go see him?" Clara smiled. Already got the approval. But it's not going to be like before. No hand-feeding. No hugs. Just closeness. That was all Emily needed. 3 days later, under a pale golden sun, Emily stood by a small wooden viewing deck in the middle of a vast preserve. Rangers watched from a distance. Cameras were silent. The gate opened. Out of the trees came a bear, larger than memory, slower, heavier, but with the same head tilt. The same cautious, thoughtful eyes. Buddy. He saw her. Froze. Then took 3 steps forward. Emily didn't move. She wasn't supposed to. So instead, she did the one thing he would remember best. She waved, just like she used to from the school bus window. Buddy paused. His ears flicked forward. And then, with the same gentle grace he had shown as a cub, he sat down. Not out of fear. Not because of any command. But because this was their ritual. Their silent understanding. The bear cub who had followed her bus every day, remembered. And now, even as the world changed, the bond they had forged in the quiet mornings of Pine Grove still lived, stronger than time, deeper than distance. Before she left, Emily placed a small wooden carving on a stone near the fence. A simple shape she'd made with her dad, a school bus, no longer than her hand. Painted yellow, with tiny bear ears etched into the roof. She didn't need to say goodbye. Because sometimes, love doesn't end. It just grows up.